The fair, an institution and colourful way of life steeped in history and entangled with British culture for nearly 1,000 years. From Wick to Penzance and everywhere in between, the presence and impact of the fair is hard to ignore. The bright flashing lights, the sound of laughter and loud music, the smell of candy floss, and for many, happy memories. But this once exciting and rewarding lifestyle, which many only experience for a week or two before it moves to a new ground, could disappear altogether. COVID-19 has been the most disruptive, invasive and devastating pandemic in modern history and has affected all of us. Work and education's been moved online, we've all taken to sanitising, sterilising, social distancing and face covering. But how do you adapt when your business revolves around large gatherings and multiple households? Growing up as part of the travelling community, I learned that if nothing else, showmen are resilient, versatile and creative problem solvers. Throughout history, the fair has evolved through the different epochs of British life to where we are now. And that has meant working through some of the most difficult periods, from world wars to financial disasters and pandemics even worse than this one. The fun fairs that we see today are almost unrecognisable compared to what we would have seen during the initial golden age of the fair. The name showman itself comes from when the fun fair separated from the commercial and hiring fairs that used to travel the United Kingdom. And these fun fairs were purely focused on entertainment. And the entertainment that was on offer took a lot of different forms, from boxing exhibitions to theatrical performances and magic and illusion shows like Dr. Wilfred Bodie of Aberdeen's Electric Show. To find out more about the showman lifestyle and how the fair has changed throughout his life, I spoke to my dad. He grew up travelling the UK with my grandparents and my auntie and has watched the culture change for the past 50 years. From the outside looking in, life as a showman travelling about with the fairground looks exciting and fun. But I want to know from you, what was your whole experience like?
A lot of fun, a lot of hard work. A lot of hard work by setting up and taking down and moving from fair to fair, general maintenance, fixing like generators and repairs to like the fairground rides and stalls and stuff like that, and just a general upkeep. And then that was like 7 days a week. I was doing that from as soon as I could walk. I was like put in a stall or something, when I was a kid, I used to watch the mirror show.
What was your favourite part about being a showman?
The different fairs. Meeting up with my friends at the different places. Sometimes there's like 5 or 6 families that travel together all the time. The odd time there'd be like another family or two would come to that fair but not go to the next one. They'd have a different fair of their own to go to. Mm-hmm. So that was when you met up like with friends that you hadn't seen for a while and stuff like that.
And I'm talking about like from when you were a kid up until now. What is the biggest change been to show business since you were a little kid?
Well, things has become so advanced and moved on so much. You've got to have a big fancy ride to take big money.
Yeah.
To pay big, but at the same time, it's a big circle because you're paying bigger debts.
Yeah.
More expenses, more people working for you and stuff like that. So it's just progress, isn't it?
You built the fun house with Grandad from scratch, yeah, and you've built snack bars from scratch. You've taken shells and turned them into snack bars. Yeah. How much of rides, the likes of snack bars and like fun houses and even the bigger rides that you see now, how much have they progressed since you were building them?
It started off being so simple, like candy floss, toffee apples, hot dog. So it's the same with rides. Just for the sake of saying a roller coaster. At one point, a roller coaster just went up and down hills. Then all of a sudden they started going up and over, and then they started making them like a corkscrew. Everybody's looking for that new thrill, that new high, that bigger buzz.
Yep. So it's pretty clear from what my dad said that the fair and the way that showmen make their money has changed over the decades that he's travelled. This is consistent with what we see when we look back at the development of the shows. While entertainment has always been the focus, the way in which showmen entertain has changed with time. The Industrial Revolution brought with it machinery that not only made manufacturing and production easier, but also machinery which showmen could use to enhance their punters' experience. Before long, the freak show was replaced by the steam-powered carousel, and the boxing booth was replaced by the helter-skelter. And this trend didn't stop at the carousel and the helter-skelter. As the 20th and 21st centuries have progressed, the rides have gotten bigger, more elaborate, and much more expensive. For example, let's look at an all-time classic fairground game, the Coconut Shy, a staple of the fair, which first made its appearance in the late 19th century. To set up a Coconut Shy in 2021, it would cost you around £228 for a basic outdoor market stall, £50 for 5 coconut posts, and say £100 to spend on materials to make your stall look attractive. All in, excluding site fees, maintenance, public liability insurance, advertising and transport, it would cost you roughly £378. If you were to invest in an iconic ride such as the mini Ferris wheel, however, you'd be looking at anything from £25,000 to over £200,000. Basically, the cost to operate the shows has grown exponentially since the middle of the 21st century. This makes a full season more financially burdensome than ever. It means that you need to make big money. This isn't a new concern. When asked in the 1990s about the future of the travelling shows, this showman stated that the biggest threat to his way of life was the finances.
So do you see a very little future for your age group?
Because if things keep going the way they're going with the prices that we're paying, because we do pay a lot for tax and we have to pay insurance and that. But I can't really see it going on much longer unless something drastically happens to change it, So we're not paying as much because we're just surviving now as it is really,
These large machines are expensive to maintain, transport and operate. And while the show business can be really lucrative, it means that showmen rely on a full season of work in the spring right the way through to autumn to make sure that bills are paid and that food's on the table.
Good evening. The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades, and this country is not alone. From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home. Because the critical thing.
So you can imagine just how devastating COVID-19 has been for the showman community. As a result of lockdown restrictions, over 4,000 fairs nationwide were cancelled. A whole season, estimated to be worth over £100 million. Gone. To find out more about the support available to showmen and how the community is supporting itself, I spoke to the chairman of the Scottish Showmen's Guild, Alex James Cohen. Perspective, how detrimental has the effect of the pandemic been on the community as a whole?
It couldn't have been any worse. This is the first time in living memory that we've had a year now, well, it's been a year now, where there have been very few fairs at all, and especially in Scotland.
Something that I came across just when I was looking at the kind of the grants and funds and things like that were available to show people, I came across the Travelling Show People Fund. How did that come about and how successful was it?
It came about because I just didn't stop pestering people, to be honest. At the beginning, we fell through the cracks. Obviously, the first sort of funds that came along were for those that were based on rates, and show people didn't fit that category because, we're moving around the country, so we don't have rateable properties. So members wasn't getting any kind of help or things from that. And that's something that we took up with government. So speaking to the people that are responsible for that fund and then speaking to others, eventually we started to look at whether we could set up our own sort of fund. We crossed each bridge as we came to it, and we tried to come up with a criteria that was plain and simple and easy that everyone, anyone could fit. So that's how we come to the criteria. If we were doing that again, we'd maybe do things slightly differently. But it's easier always to look back and think, we should have done this, we should have done that. And if things continue on where we can't operate for a while, then there may be an opportunity there to go back and look at a second round of funding. But hopefully, touch wood, that's not what we want. We want to be out there operating and have the fairs back on. So,
with little support from the government other than universal credits, no idea when shows will be open again, and grants restricted to a few exceptional fairs seen more as amusement parks, showmen have done what they do best: adapt. The talents and skills of showmen are often overlooked. Maybe it's indicative of the private and close-knit nature of the community, but showmen are some of the most skilled, inventive and productive people on the planet. When a lorry breaks or a machine stops working, showmen become mechanics. When a ride needs updated, maintained or built, they become engineers. When the pay box needs sprucing up, they become joiners, artists and electricians. Showmen are the jacks and the masters of all trades. So as you can imagine, showmen have fared pretty well and adapted to the new normal. The opportunities for showmen to earn using their creativity, skills and expertise haven't been hard to come by.
We interrupt our programme to bring you this important message.
Hi, so this is Baldy Caleb from the present here, just kind of interrupting what I'm saying, just to add a wee bit extra. So basically there was time constraints when I made this at the time for college, so that's why it's under 10 minutes, and I kind of brushed over some things that I felt kind of undermined the showman experience, and that's the last thing I want to do, so that's what this is. As we spoke about earlier, showmen faced a lot of adversity. They kind of fell through the cracks when it came to any government legislation that was there to help people during the pandemic and kind of save businesses, and they were just left to figure it out. And a lot of people did, well, just that, they figured it out. Some put their licenses and experience driving heavy goods vehicles to good use, and they became lorry drivers. My dad even done that. And I feel as though long haul drivers and lorry drivers have been the unsung heroes of the pandemic, kind of keeping the shelves stacked whenever we rinsed them all of toilet paper. But it wasn't just delivering goods for businesses and supermarkets and things like that. James Colquhoun, who we spoke to earlier, actually went to work for the TV show Outlander, hauling their equipment from location to location. And then there were those who had their own fleet of haulage vehicles that they could put to work for them. They were able to offer up services such as long haulage delivery, waste disposal, and some even started removal businesses. Add to that people who had catering equipment and were able to roll their snack bars and ice cream vans out onto the parks and building sites of the UK. And I mean, there's so much more that I could talk about. I could talk about the painters and decorators, I could talk about the mechanics, I could talk about the landscapers, but we would literally be here all day. Basically, showmen were left in a really tough spot, and we had to adapt and spot opportunities and take advantage of them. And as a community, for the most part, a lot of people did. But anyway, that's enough from me. Now to the end of the documentary. As vaccines roll out and the R rate continues to fall, the eagerness to roll the fair out in towns and cities across the UK ramps up. The showman community are excited and ready to get back to what they know and what they've been doing for generations: entertaining.